This conference will now be recorded.
All right, welcome to Oceanside Library. I now love to introduce our presenter for tonight from the Mental Health and Wellness Center at Molloy College, Kellyanne Brady. Take it away, Kellyanne.
All right, thank you, Akaria, and thank you to the Oceanside Library for having us back again. We are always so excited to be bringing mental health and wellness programming to the community. I'll talk a little bit about the Mental Health and Wellness Center at Molloy College a little bit when we wrap up. But I am Kellyanne Brady. I'm a licensed mental health counselor in New York State, and I'm also the clinic director of the Mental Health and Wellness Center at Molloy College. So today we're going to be talking about back to school and how to maintain wellness in returning to school for kids of all ages, older students as well, whoever, and even parents, whoever may be joining us today. Wellness in returning back to school is really important. And I love this quote about education because it says, education is our passport to the future, for tomorrow belongs to the people who prepare for it today. And I think that is so important because, and it struck me at this time in particular because what we're going through as a society, as a country, with the pandemic, with everything that is going on, this is forming our leaders of tomorrow, and this is so important. And we want to help all students really capitalize on their wellness and come out of this experience in a positive way. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. So today, what our topics will be is the first day of school in a new world. So we're going to be discussing some emotions that students and parents are experiencing during this academic year. Talking about coping with stress, change, and uncertainty. There's a lot of different things going on. We're going to be talking about how to cope with those things. We're going to talk about some healthy habits for academic success, talking about tips for promoting academic wellness and success throughout the school year, whether you're in person, remote, or some other form of learning during this year. And then we'll wrap up with some discussion so we can I can answer some questions, whatever may be needed from you all when we're done with this presentation. So we're going to start off by talking about the first day of school in a new world. What is this looking like? And from a mental health perspective, it looks very different this year than in years past. So we're going back to school in the middle of a pandemic. So the one thing that I want to encourage everyone to do is not to panic. We're all going to get through this together, and we're all going to be able to come out of, on the other side of this positive, more resilient, and looking forward to when things can start going back to normal. So one of the things that we've all experienced during this period of time is that we have a ton of emotions, a ton of thoughts that are going on all at the same time, some positive and some negative. So anxiety might be something that you're experiencing, which might be this pervasive feeling of worry that consumes your mind at times. This sense of dread, sense of worry, sense of feeling that bad things are going on all the time. But there also may be excitement. So, maybe some students are happy that they're getting out of the house, seeing friends again, and returning to school, and maybe getting back into a routine. Also, there might be some fear, both for parents and for students. It can be scary to not know what's going to happen when you do return to school. And you might have this sense that something bad could happen to either you or someone that you love and care about. And all of these feelings and emotions really can lead to a significant increase in stress. So when you have been doing something for a while one way in the end of the spring semester, then you had the summer break, Now you might be getting back into a routine and all of these assignments again, coupled with the fear and anxiety. It can really bring about an overwhelming sense of stress and feel like your emotions are taking over. So what we're going to talk about today is really how to offset some of these thoughts and emotions that you're experiencing. So when we're talking about this overwhelming sense of emotions, especially with negative emotions, we need to first think about control. Do we have control? Are we in control of our experiences around us? So one thing that we have to realize is that we have control over our thoughts, or we can gain control over our thoughts, but sometimes we don't have control over the things that are going on around us. So we need to think about if we have control over the things that we're struggling with. So one of the examples is that we don't necessarily have control over the pandemic. So we don't have control whether that is happening or not. I'm sure that many of us wish that it would kind of just go away, disappear. We don't have control over that. So we need to focus on what we do have control over, because when we focus on what we don't have control over, we just end up increasing our negative emotions such as anxiety, frustration, and anger. So in order to gain a sense of control, one of the things that we can do is practice acceptance. And when we practice our acceptance, we end up shifting our thinking from what's wrong or what's not going well, what's wrong in the world, what's wrong in our lives, to shifting our thinking to what's right, what's going well, what are we happy about, what are we thankful for. And I'm going to talk more about positivity and gratitude in just a few minutes. So when we practice acceptance, we're really working on perspective taking, which I will touch on in more detail soon. But it's how do we look at this difficult situation differently? How do we change the way that we are viewing this so that we can change the way that we're thinking about it? We want to look at the bigger picture. So the bigger picture means coming out of our bubble, coming out of our own mindset and saying, how do I look at this from a lot of different angles to really kind of gain a better understanding. When you gain a better understanding of the bigger picture of things, it kind of helps with the feelings that we have associated with this. We want to look for silver linings in situations. So is there something good that can come out of this situation? If we're thinking about what's going on in society and what's going on around us, are there positive things that will come out of this? And oftentimes we hope that the answer will be yes, there can be positive changes that come from this. With returning to school, there could be positive things that come from that as well. For students getting back into a routine, getting to see their friends, it can actually help offset some of the negative mental health effects that they may have been experiencing towards the end of the last academic year. And additionally, finding positive things to focus on during this period of transition can be super helpful in changing your mood, reducing your stress, eliminating anxiety. So I'll talk some more when we talk about coping skills on how do we find positive things to focus on during this period of transition as we're transitioning back into this potentially very scary and uncertain school year. So now I'll shift into talking about how do we cope with all of those things. We talked about some scary things. We'll talk about coping with it now. So the first off, we want to encourage students to talk about what is going on for them. We want them to know that they can express their emotions and their thoughts to certain people, and to let them know that they are supported, so they can use their support team. So who's their support team? Some members of the faculty at their school, teachers and school staff, guidance counselors, school psychologists, even aides at school. These people are there to help them when they're in school, if they're having any questions or if they're struggling. Most importantly, family and friends. these, they can rely on family and friends to really kind of express what's going on for them. And when family really supports their emotions and really allows them that space to express themselves, it can be really helpful in eliminating that stress and anxiety and the negative feelings that they're having. One of the things that we talk about a lot in the clinical mental health counseling program at Molloy is when you feel heard, you can begin to heal. And that's a big thing. So even if family and friends are just there to listen or to let the other person know that they understand what they're going through, that can be really helpful in healing from some of these negative emotions that they're having. And then the support team can also include counselors and other community supports, professional helpers such as licensed mental health counselors, clergy members, community organizations such as libraries. All of these organizations can be a source of support, and they can provide helpful activities such as this workshop that we're in right now. Having a sense of something to, like a tool to utilize, can be very helpful in knowing that there's an outlet for what is going on for you inside of you, whether it be a thought, an emotion, a feeling. And it's also helpful to get together with other people who may understand what you're going through and be seeking the same kind of support. So another great way to cope with the negative experiences that you're having can be to practice gratitude. So, 1 second. Okay. Okaria, if you're there, did my PowerPoint freeze?
No, it was on the practicing gratitude. There it is. It's on the
There it is.
practice gratitude
Okay.
slide. Yep.
If this froze on my end, just wanted to make sure.
Cool,
Thank
no
you.
problem.
All right, so one way to cope with the negative emotions or experiences that you're having is practicing gratitude. So some ways to practice gratitude would be to take some time each day to write down a few things that you're grateful for, happy with from that day. This can help train your brain to focus on the things that you're appreciative of in your life instead of focusing on all of the negative things and only the negative things. Another way to do that is to have a video gratitude journal. So you could take a photo of something that makes you feel thankful or makes you feel like there's a sense of wonder in your day. So that can be something that you can do as opposed to writing things down. Taking a gratitude walk can be really helpful. You can go outside, take a walk. The trees are going to be changing colors soon. It's fall. Flowers are going to be changing. You can soak up some warm sun while we still have it and be thankful for the new season that's coming in. Fall brings about a lot of changes, and it also offers an opportunity for us to really soak in the wonder of nature and be appreciative of that. So this is a good time to get out and take these gratitude walks. And remembering to say thank you. So it feels good when we say thank you to someone, and it feels good when we acknowledge how thankful we are for something. So taking that time each day to just acknowledge the things that you have for what is in your life. Maybe it's just the opportunity to get out of the house, as I mentioned before, and go to school and see your friends, even if it's 1 or 2 days a week. That can be really helpful. Or maybe you're thankful for the routine that you're getting back with school starting up again. Whatever it may be, you can be thankful for that. So another thing that we can do is practice mindfulness. So mindfulness is about bringing your thoughts to the present moment. So what happens is when we get overwhelmed with these feelings and emotions, our thoughts start to go kind of all over the place, and we have trouble focusing on what's going on for us in the here and now. So these activities that I'm going to touch on in a minute are ways to quiet the worries about the future. And there's many different ways to practice mindfulness and meditation. I'm going to touch on 3 easy ones that I can explain within the context of this presentation here that can be really helpful for you. However, if you're looking for more activities, there's a ton on YouTube that are free. You can look up meditation activities, mindfulness exercises, guided meditations. All of these things can be really helpful in helping you calm these worries and thoughts when they're feeling overwhelming. So one that I want to talk about today is mindful breathing. So mindful breathing is pretty simple and can be done in a lot of different ways. But essentially what you really want to do is take a moment. I'm going to ask everybody who's listening to do this with me. Take just 1 moment to close your eyes. Put your hands on your belly or on your chest. And take a breath in to the count of 5 through your nose. So 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold it for 3, 2, 3. And then exhale through your mouth for 5, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the reason why I have you put your hand on your belly or your chest is to help bring that focus to your breath. You want to focus on the rising and the falling of your body. You want to focus on the breath going actually in through your nose or mouth and into your lungs, filling that up, what it feels like to hold it there for a second, and what that exhale really feels like. When you're focusing on that, you can't really be focusing on much else. So being mindful of your breath can be really helpful in getting you centered in any type of situation. Additionally, progressive muscle relaxation is something that can be helpful as well. Progressive muscle relaxation just involves systematically tensing and releasing your muscles. So for example, if you wanted to start with your hands, you could tense your hands, hold it, and then release, and then tense your forearms, hold it, and then release, and notice that sense of relaxation go throughout your body as you work your way all the way through your body from your head to your toes. And when you're done, that sense of relaxation can be a very pleasant feeling, but also by focusing on the different parts of your body, it draws your attention away from the thoughts that you might be experiencing. The third technique that I want to touch on today is one of my all-time favorites. It's called the 5-4-3-2-1 technique. And when you do this, it does take a few minutes to do, but it can be a really helpful exercise if you find yourself needing a break from your thoughts. What you could do is sort of center yourself, and you want to identify 5 things you can see. And when you look around and you identify those things that you see, you really want to look at it. And an interesting thing when you first start practicing this technique is you're going to notice that you don't really look at things very often. You look at things, you see things, but you don't really see things. So when you're looking at these 5 things, notice the color, notice the shape, notice whether it looks like it would be smooth or not. Notice what the object itself is. Describe that object in your mind. And really take the time to really see. Then you would identify 4 things you can, excuse me, 4 things you can touch. So you really want to actually go and touch the objects around you. So for example, the desk in front of me feels cool. The blanket next to me is soft and warm. And you want to kind of do that with all of the things you can touch. You actually want to reach out and touch them. Then you're going to identify 3 things you can hear. This might seem like it might be getting more challenging, but maybe the hum of your computer, or a car driving by outside, or the sound of an air conditioning or a fan. Then you want to identify 2 things you can smell. You can actually have things around you, maybe aromatherapy or things along those lines that can help you identify things you can smell, or maybe just take in what's around you. And then also 1 thing that you can taste. So often I have tea with me and I'll take a sip of tea. And I kind of identify what that tastes like. Okay. So before I go on, I just have to clear my throat a second. So just bear with me 1 moment. Sorry about that.
For a second, Kellyanne, I thought you were showing us an example because you were talking about tasting the tea. I'm like, oh, she's walking us through it. That's good.
I was, and then I was looking for an excuse to drink my tea. I think the allergies are definitely setting in for the change of season.
I'm feeling that too. Yeah.
I apologize. So another coping skill is exercise and physical well-being. And this has been really brought to the forefront because it's so important for us to take care of ourselves and our physical body. So we want to eat right and stay active so that we can have positive effects on our mental health. And these activities that we're doing can really boost the chemicals in our body that make us feel happy, make us feel energized. So these are called endorphins, and they can really improve our mood. And if you imagine how you feel after exercise, or if you've been eating right for a while, there's a boost in self-esteem that comes with this that puts us in this positive mind state and also helps us feel better about ourselves, which will end up radiating throughout all areas of our life and really make us feel good overall about what's going on for us and can change our mind state. So now I'm going to shift from some coping skills and ways to maintain wellness as we transition to the academic year to actually specific ways that as students you can prepare yourself for academic success. So routine is super important for all of us, whether you're an adult working or a student going to school. Routines are really important, and oftentimes we take the benefits of a routine for granted. So we want to identify what a positive routine for us would be. But before we do that, let's talk about why routines are so important. First of all, structure keeps us efficient, and when we are efficient and when we feel like we're productive, we feel good about ourselves. Think about when you have a to-do list or you have a big project to get done. You feel much better when you're making progress as opposed to when you're procrastinating before getting the things done. So by creating a structure that we adhere to, things stay really positive for us, and we can stay in a more positive mind state instead of getting overcome by negative emotions. Additionally, they can lower our stress, right? So if we're not putting things off, if we're making sure that we're doing what we need to be doing, if we're staying in a flow of things, we don't get stressed about things that we don't need to be stressed about. Routines help us take better care of ourselves and our health as well. Like, for example, if you're staying active, or if you're staying on a good sleep routine, that can improve your health and overall physical well-being, which also impacts your mental well-being. Can absolutely help us feel more productive and focused. We get greater enjoyment and free time and fun. So if you imagine that project that I was just referring to, if you don't put that off and you don't let it procrastinate, if you don't procrastinate on it, what you find is that when you do have your free time or time to go out and hang out with friends, or you're doing something good for yourself, you get to enjoy that more because you don't have the other things, the things that you're putting off over your head. And this can help achieve your goals. And when you achieve your goals, you feel positive about yourself. So how do you make and maintain a routine? So many of us probably have plenty of experience making routines, but sticking with them can be really difficult. The first tip for making a routine would be to recreate the structure from home or school. Whatever you feel you need to create or to infuse into your routine, that's what you can focus on. So for many students, the structure from school may even help them at home, especially if they're learning remotely. So what is it about school that helps them be productive? Maybe it's about class, maybe it's about doing work for a certain period of time. Maybe it's about getting up every 45 minutes to an hour to walk around. That can be something you can incorporate in an at-home routine. Additionally, if you have a routine from that you used to do at home, and now maybe you're going to school remotely, maybe it's important to keep up the routine that you had before that worked for you in previous school years when you were going to school in person. So an example of that might be to do your homework first and then go outside and have some fun time or free time outside. And maybe that's a good thing to incorporate into your schedule at the same time that you used to do that. Similarly, if you're going into school, you kind of want to get back into that routine of what you would do to make sure you got your work done and your studying done. But also, as I'll touch on in just a second, free time and scheduling that in is important as well. When making a successful routine, think about what has worked for you in the past. If it's worked for you in the past, it's likely to work for you again. The opposite of this is also true. If it didn't work for you in the past, why didn't it work? And what can you do differently? Those are helpful things to think about. Planners are always great ways to keep you in a routine and doing what you need to be doing when you want to be doing it. Planners can help organize the tasks that you have coming up, and they can keep you on track, which can also help reduce stress in the long run. So if you have this planner and you have this routine down, it can be really helpful for you to not get overwhelmed when something's coming up because you have a better sense of how long you have to get that done. You also want to prioritize sleep, nutrition, hygiene, and self-care. All very, very important things that we want to incorporate into our routine. Sometimes we take these things for granted, so to speak. We kind of say like, okay, I sleep and I'm going to sleep for, 9 hours. Or, I'm going to eat breakfast at this time. For those who are struggling to maintain a routine, it can be really helpful to actually write these things down. So selecting a healthy bedtime for you and a healthy waking up time for you, scheduling meals at times that you want to be eating. Maybe for those who struggle to maintain their hygiene when their routine gets off, putting that in there, showering, brushing your teeth. And also self-care. When are you going to schedule the activities that are really just to care for yourself, to rejuvenate yourself, which might be, doing your hair, or maybe doing your nails, or reading a book, whatever that may be. You can schedule that in your planner or in your routine as well. focus on what you have control over. So sometimes in routines, we like to put in things that maybe we don't have control over. We want to make sure that anything that we include in our routine is something that we have full control over, because when something maybe doesn't go as we planned and we didn't have control over it, it can really feel like a letdown and can throw off our routine. We don't want to include anything that would really sabotage the routine. We want the routine to be successful. There's a reminder here to not forget breaks and fun time or downtime. It's so important for us to have a healthy balance of the things that we have to do and the things that we want to do. So remember to include breaks and positive times in our routine, especially if you're planning out your day. Make sure that you take time for yourself. And also be honest and gentle with yourself. Maybe making and maintaining a routine is something that you've struggled with for a while, or maybe transitioning back to getting into a routine is difficult. What you can do is just take time. Take the time to get back into it. Maybe start off with a few things in your routine that you stick to, and then increase the amount of times that amount of things that you include in your routine. And if you fail, it's okay. One thing you want to remember is that you're trying to do better for yourself. So be gentle, be kind to yourself. The next day is a new day. The next week is a new week. Try again and just keep being kind to yourself, and just keep reminding yourself that you're trying to do better. So some tips, other tips for academic success: if you're learning remotely, go to class. And I guess what I mean by that is it's very easy to be at home and be getting distracted and with other things that you have around you. Take this remote learning seriously. Remove the distractions. Try to recreate the environment of actually being in a classroom. And this all seems obvious, but it never hurts to reiterate this. Just you want to not lose this time of learning, even though it may feel very different if you're learning remotely. Second, you want to identify your study and learning habits. Everyone learns differently, and everyone studies differently. Everyone retains information differently. So try a bunch of different learning habits out. So maybe you learn by reading something multiple times, or maybe you learn by taking notes. Whatever works for you, you want to kind of identify that and stick with that. But everyone, as I mentioned, everyone's different, so you might need to try out a bunch of different tactics before you find what works for you. Try to get to know at least one person from each class you can contact. It's great to have a support, especially if you're feeling anxious or uncertain or uneasy. And it also is good to have somebody you feel comfortable with, who you can use as a support for each class. Next, I would recommend to use your school's resources. Every school is equipped with resources. So whether you're remote or in person, find out how to utilize those services. So maybe how do you utilize the library if you're learning remotely, or if you're in person, how do you utilize the library services? Maybe your school has a writing center or extra help. And also, how do you use the guidance in the counseling center, whether in person or remote? All of these services will still be available to you, and know that you can access them and get the help that you need, regardless of what's going on in this academic year. Another great tip is to get to know your teachers or your advisors or guidance counselors, and reach out when you have questions or need help. The more that you know your teachers and your guidance counselors, and the more that you make an effort to get to know them, the more comfortable you will feel going to them when you have a challenge or when something's bothering you, or if you have a question. The goal is to get yourself comfortable with talking to them so that you know that you can go to them and feel comfortable when doing so. And another tip for academic success is take your learning outside of the classroom. What else can you do to learn new things? What are you interested in? Learning isn't always about what you have to learn, but it could also be about what you want to learn. So how do you increase the learning outside of the classroom? That will also improve your mood, reduce your stress, and it can give you motivation, which will offset all of those negative emotions that you might be feeling now. And it also gives you something to be grateful for as you proceed through the academic year. So one tip that I said I would come back to is practice perspective taking. And I love this cartoon here because I really think it sums up what it means to practice perspective taking. So for our callers, I'll kind of describe this cartoon. So on the left side, there's a man stranded on an island in the middle of the ocean, and he sees a boat, and he's very excited that he sees a boat. Now, on the right side of the cartoon, it's from the perspective of the man in the boat who must have been adrift at sea, and he sees land, and he's very excited to see that land. So it's all about the perspective that you're in. So both these men are thinking that their savior is coming, but what these men don't know is that both men are in that same boat. So, it's all about being able to look at situations from different angles. So we want to ask ourselves, how can we look at this difficult situation differently? So what's going on around us is difficult. What our society as a whole is going through is difficult. How can we look at this situation differently? How can we take a different perspective on what's going on outside of our kind of go-to automatic response perspective? We want to take a step back and look at the bigger picture. So if I took that cartoon that I just described, if I take a step back and look at this cartoon from a different perspective, so maybe immediately people will be like, oh, that's kind of sad. They're both thinking that they're going to get saved, but they end up in the same situation. But if you look at it from a different perspective, even though they are both going to end up stranded still, at least they're going to have each other. So different perspectives can really change the story that you're telling. When practicing perspective taking, you want to put yourself in someone else's shoes. So by putting yourself in someone else's shoes, it helps you think about how that person may see the situation or may see the world. And remind yourself to try to find the positive perspective. When you force yourself to try and find the silver lining or the positive perspective in different situations, it ultimately fosters healthier patterns of thought. So the more that you practice this, the more that your brain will default to looking for the positive perspective in things as opposed to defaulting to the negative. So that's a great skill to really begin to practice early in life. And for parents out there, encouraging younger children to start to do that as well can be really helpful, because then it's a great habit to get into. So we're coming to the end of the presentation, so we're just going to wrap up and answer any questions if there are any, and talk a little bit about the Mental Health and Wellness Center. So to sum this up, I kind of I guess I kind of related to ABCs for academic success. So the first is A is for acknowledge your feelings. Our feelings are strong right now, and there's a lot of them, and there's no right or wrong way to feel right now. So just acknowledge your feelings, address them, and be aware of them, and then be kind to yourself. Don't beat yourself up. So the B stands for be kind for yourself. You don't want to beat yourself up. You want to just know that you're doing the best that you can, and learning every day and continuing to be better each day. And the C stands for coping skills. So after you acknowledge your feelings, you acknowledge that it's okay to not feel okay right now, then you use your coping skills to help offset the negative feelings that you're experiencing, and to change the patterns of thoughts to a more positive perspective. So I want to open it up if there's any thoughts or any questions from anyone.
Thank you, Kellyanne. I'm just going to stop the recording here so that we can have a more open discussion. Hold on one
Sure.
sec.